Hello, welcome to Chapter 5. Today we're going to be learning about different aspects of designing a study, and then we're going to learn about bias. The first thing we need to remember is the difference between an observational study and an experiment. In an observational study, we observe individuals and measure variables of interest, but do not attempt to influence the responses. In an experiment, we deliberately impose some treatment that is something we do. So we impose some treatment on individuals and in order to observe their responses. So we're directly affecting something and we're looking at the responses. Now a population and a sample, it's really important what the difference is. An entire group of individuals that we want information about is called the population. So we could say Americans. That's all. The entire population of America, the United States, would be our population. A sample is a part of that population that we can actually examine in order to gather the information. We can't go to every single person in America and ask them whether or not they like a certain pair of shoes. However, if a clothing manufacturer wants to market a pair of shoes, what they can do is try to get a representative sample of the United States and see how that sample can compare to the larger population. Now, sampling involves studying a part in order to gain information about a whole. So we're just going to look for 200 people that hope to represent America, where a census attempts to contact every individual in an entire population. Now, a census is possible if I want to ask a question to my AP statistics students. I only have like 65 students, so it's pretty easy to ask every single one of them a particular question. It wouldn't make sense to do a sample when I could figure out what all of AP Stats thinks. However, if I want to, like I just said about asking the United States, that gets more difficult. Or if I just want to ask all the females in a particular school, that would be pretty difficult to find every single female and ask them a question. So we like to take samples. So when would we use a sampling? When the population is big. When the population is large, see if I can spell here, is large and difficult to ask questions to ask questions from survey. So when would you do a census? Almost the opposite, when population is small. Is the U.S. Census an actual census? Now, it depends on your definition of a census. It says a census attempts to contact every individual in an entire population. And the U.S. Census does attempt to contact every individual, but they don't get every person. They have to make up for or account for all the homeless people or the people living with other people that might not count them. So they do a good job. They spend a lot of money trying to figure it out. But it depends on your definition of census as to whether it's actual census. Voluntary response sample. A voluntary response sample consists of people who choose themselves by responding to a general appeal. A voluntary response samples are biased because people with strong opinions, especially negative opinions, are most likely to respond. Some examples of voluntary response samples are like CNN. Like CNN can have some polls where maybe a commentator will say, call in if you think immigration is a problem in America. Now, that's a pretty biased question, but if the only people who are going to call in are the people who feel really strongly. So those polls tend to have like a 99, 98% approval rating because the only people who feel really strongly uh, about it are calling in. Another voluntary response sample could be a mail-in survey. So you might have a mail-in survey on something that happened in the community, and only people who are really mad about that will actually mail in the survey. Convenience sampling is another way to sample. It's choosing individuals that are the easiest to reach. Uh, if I had a poll on my Facebook page, so I just asked my friends, so you could do one on Facebook, or you can go to the mall and just pick the people that are walking by and they'll talk to you. Um, convenience, it's, it's convenient to do it, but it doesn't necessarily tell you that it's representative. Also, with voluntary response, it's also not very representative of an entire population. Both of those methods create a bias. A bias means that the sampling method, or a sampling method is biased if it systematically favors a certain outcome. Um, so we're going to go into some examples of bias, but the CNN interview or CNN polls or mall surveys are definitely biased. One type of bias is undercoverage. This occurs when some segments in the population are left out of the process of choosing the sample. Uh, some people argue that doing phone surveys for political elections aren't very good because not everybody has a phone. And if we only pick people with cell phones, maybe some elderly people don't have cell phones, so you're leaving them out. So you have to pick a method that can equally represent our population. Non-response occurs when an individual chosen for a sample can't be contacted or does not cooperate. So if they mail out 1,000 surveys and 100 people respond, that means that we really don't know what exactly is happening because 90% of the people didn't actually respond. Maybe only 100% of the people who were dissatisfied with a particular service responded, and they would change their policies, but maybe 90% actually liked the service. They just they weren't motivated to actually turn it in. A response bias. When the behavior of the interviewer or the respondent change the behavior. Um, so response biases could be the person who's interviewing the respondent, if they're maybe aggressive, if they're leading the respondent in a particular direction, if sometimes it depends where they're asking the questions. If they're asking uh, maybe a question about abortion uh, right at a church, they might get a different response than if they ask those same people at their homes. So there's a lot of things that could produce a response bias. Now the wordings of the question can also uh, provide a bias. Confusing or leading questions. I forgot what I wrote there. Confusing or leading questions can dramatically affect your answers. Uh, if you said, "Is Obama doing a horrible job with immigration?" Uh, that's that's leading people to believe that maybe he is doing a horrible job. So people might tend to agree when if you just ask them, "How would you rate President Obama on immigration?" Those are two completely different questions. So the wording of the question can also lead people in particular directions, which can throw the data off. Now, when you're analyzing a study, make sure you know how each question is asked. Uh, make sure you look at the rate All right, the rate of non-response. We want to check the undercoverage. And we want to check the validity by checking out um, how good the questions were asked. So and so it's kind of like the first one. So that will tell you the validity of the survey. All right, your homework tonight is 1 through 8. Good luck.